Hello, this review of Batman Heart of Hush. Paul Dini has been one of the most influential Batman writers in recent memory, being the creator of Harley Quinn, helping to redefine Mr. Freeze as a character, and most recently writing the two incredibly successful Arkham video games, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, of course. Not only has he introduced new things to the Batman mythos, but he truly gets the already established parts of Batman, especially the villains. My personal favorite villains that I like to see Paul Dini write is the Joker and Riddler. The best Joker episodes in the animated series are written by him, like Almost Got Him and The Laughing Fish. And the Joker himself feels really menacing, but he's actually very funny. And that's something that voice actor Mark Hamill really adds to the performance. Regarding his work with the Riddler, I really like how Paul Dini writes his motivations and how he needs to prove his genius so he's better than Batman. I find that really fascinating. He explores this in his Detective Comics run, and of course the Arkham video games, especially with the patient interview tapes. It's safe to say that Paul Dini is at the top of my favorite Batman writers. Not number one, but like at around there. At least top 3. As for his work outside of Batman, there isn't much I've gotten into besides his work on Superman and the recent Ultimate Spider-Man animated series, which was rather disappointing, but that's another review for another time. Getting my love of Paul Dini's Batman work out of the way, Batman Heart of Hush is one of his best Batman works in comics. While the original Batman Hush with Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee was very entertaining to read, it didn't really put much focus on the title villain or his thoughts and motivations. Even though it was a mystery story and couldn't follow Hush through much of the book. So that's where Heart of Hush comes into play. Its goal is stated right in the title, to get into the heart of Hush as a character. This story makes Hush a deeper, more human character and better parallels him and Batman. While most of the book follows Hush's thought process, Batman himself actually gets a bunch of great moments throughout, which is especially cool since this book is quite short and not even half the length of the original Batman Hush. While this story does have some dark themes, there's a surprising amount of leeway for comedy in the story. Another of my favorite parts of how Paul Dini writes Batman is that he gives everything, the standard dark, moody feel of Batman. But there's always a nice balance of funny situations with witty dialogue. And it never, in Paul Dini scripts, it never feels out of place or forced. Which is something I really appreciate. Whenever there is the comedy is always well handled. One of my favorite examples of this is the scene where Batman goes to Arkham Asylum to interrogate Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow. While Batman himself is pretty pissed off and he's determined to get the information out of Scarecrow after something terrible occurred at the end of the last issue, there is still a nice touch of comedy because Joker has a short cameo where he watches and comments on how the Scarecrow is getting the crap beat out of him. It's funny, especially when he says that when Batman puts him in a toilet and electrocutes Scarecrow, Joker, all he has to say is outstanding. Going back to Hush, there's truly a saddening motivation as to why he hates Bruce Wayne so much. And it goes deeper than the fact that Thomas Wayne saved his mother so he couldn't inherit his fortune. Thomas Elliot, Hush of course, hates Bruce Wayne because he could never measure up to Bruce in his mother's eyes, So she constantly compares Thomas Elliot and Bruce, which is just annoying so much throughout the book. How his mother treated, Tommy, comparing him to Bruce all the time, leads Hush to do something disturbing to himself right before the climactic final battle, of course. The reason that these comparisons are driving Hush crazy is because he sees Bruce Wayne as someone beneath him. So his question is, why is Bruce Wayne better than me? He feels that I am smarter than Batman, and Batman is just an angry child who spends his money on whatever catches his eye and never thinks ahead of his opponents, while I always stay 10 moves ahead of my opponents. Clearly, Hush doesn't understand Batman at all, or at least his thought process, because he has changed since he was a little kid, and the whole spending his money on whatever catches his eye is purely an act as part of his secret identity. Though there is a quite funny scene where Hush enters the Batcave, and he sees all these things Batman has, the Batmobiles, the Batcomputer, and he says, "Bruce, you bastard, this is magnificent." And then he sees, and in the river, is that a bathysphere? Good God, is that a whale? How screwed up would you have to be to even consider that? Which is hilarious. He doesn't understand Batman at all, so this theme comes together at the climax of the book, where there's an incredibly ironic final battle between Batman and Hush. If you plan on reading Heart of Hush, I won't spoil it here because it's just too awesome when you actually read it. Batman gets one of his greatest comebacks ever. The secondary story in the book involves Catwoman, which also serves as a fascinating parallel between Batman and Hush. The flashbacks of Thomas Elliot when he's younger, before he becomes Hush, are used to get at the heart of his character, while Catwoman's relationship with Batman is getting at the heart of Batman's character and showing that he truly cares for her. This is a truly interesting place to take Batman, since he's often seen as the cold and badass vigilante by most. But how he treats Catwoman shows that he has human feelings, and that he does indeed have a heart. While Hush's heart has grown cold and virtually disappeared. So this is great stuff. The actual heart is used in as many ways as possible. It's used both literally and figuratively, which adds a nice dimension to the book. So this is a great character study in such a short amount of time. Like I said, the book is very short. Catwoman herself is made very charming and likable with her dialogue, which makes the reader feel bad for her later on in the story. There are a few fun side things within the story I would like to briefly touch on. The first being Dr. Aesop. He commits crimes based on Aesop's folk tales, such as The Boy Who Cried Wolf, which makes him disturbed but very interesting at the same time. He usually uses killer animals to, of course, kill his victims. In this book, it appears that he is shot dead by Hush. But we see later on in Gotham City Sirens, which is also written by Paul Dini, that he survived because the bullets went through his book before they pierced his body. So the paramedics were able to save him. And so in Gotham City Sirens, he returns to torment the Riddler, who at the time was still a reformed criminal. The second thing I would like to talk about is Zatanna. Of course, that being Zatanna, DC's most prominent sorcerer superhero. She makes a few appearances throughout, mostly with Catwoman. She happens to be Paul Dini's all-time favorite character, which is funny because he's, of course, married to Misty Lee, who is a magician, which he commented in one of the episode commentaries. I think it was on Just League this little piggy, he commented it was one of life's funny surprises. Um, most of Zatanna's conversations with Catwoman are humorous, especially when Catwoman beats Zatanna at her own card game, and she goes, "Son of a!" And also towards the end, where Catwoman comments that Zatanna's stockings are tacky, and Zatanna's face just screams, "I'm not amused." Anyway, after talking so much about the story, I will take a little bit of time, though probably not enough, to talk about the artwork by Dustin. I can never properly pronounce the name, Nguyen. I'm just gonna call him that, Dustin Nguyen, because it's Nguyen. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. Anyway, while it's not to the level of Jim Lee's gorgeous artwork, it's pretty pointless to compare the artwork of Jim Lee on Batman Hush and Dustin's artwork on Heart of Hush, because Jim Lee's artwork is of the very highest quality in comics. Nguyen's artwork feels faithful to of a style more on Batman the Animated Series. And it also is reminiscent of Mike Mignola's style on Hellboy, which I mentioned in my very first review of Hush Money. The action is well handled, and the story is told clearly, which I guess is what matters. So, more impressive than his artwork in the book is his painted covers for each issue. I especially like the covers for Detective Comics 846 and 850, which are the first and last issues of the story. I wouldn't say the artwork is genius, but it is very good. Overall, the complexity of Batman's interactions with both Hush and Catwoman are fascinating, and Hush's motivations are brought to the forefront, which makes the character deeper. Every aspect of this book just gels together very nicely. I know some people think this is nothing compared to the original Batman Hush because of the better artwork in Batman Hush, and the story is longer and the mystery is more complex. But that's missing the point of this story. This comic is great because it's a great contrast. I've said this before in this review, but it's a great contrast with Batman and with a character who's his complete opposite, and how they've affected each other's development as people. Since every aspect of this book is very well handled, I can say that this is among my top 10 favorite Batman comics. Though I can't really say the number at the top of my head because I gotta think about that. Again, that's another video for another time. I definitely recommend Heart of Hush and Paul Dini's work on Batman in general. There's some great stuff there. And honestly, Paul Dini's Batman work, I can't really think of anything that isn't at least just good. I especially recommend, the animated series, the Arkham games, of course. They're all great. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching and listening. Or listening. My next review will be Transformers Prime Season 1. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.